Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening to UFO Paranormal Radio and United Public Radio Network, and this is the Angel Rock, and I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. Sorry if I seem just a little a little distracted. Two of our platforms, it doesn't look like it's playing to, but hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. Anyways, you are listening to 105.3 out of the beautiful city of Mississippi. Actually, it's not Mississippi's a state, sorry, on FM, and 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. A little bit about myself. I am a Canadian psychic medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, as well as a registered nurse. I'm also a budding animal communicator. I'm extremely well versed in near death experiences, having had one as a toddler myself and studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years. And I'm very well versed in the paranormal. I always say not by choice. It went looking for us, not us looking for them. And we've shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivors Season 4, Episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. And I do have a second show on the network. It is called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. That it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till 9 p.m. And I co-host that with my very good friend and medium and angel channel, David Hansel. So I hope you'll join us there as well. I got to have my little list here. If I don't, I always forget. So give me a sec, guys. Sorry, this came up this morning right as we went live, and I'm trying to read and speak at the same time. So forgive me. If you guys like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell all your friends and family. This network's been around for 25 plus years, and we really do have something for everybody on this network. We stream multiple shows daily, 7 days a week, and when we're not streaming live, we do have the archive server that kicks into the last 25 plus years and randomly picks shows. So I think we're almost up to 40 hosts on the network, and we're always adding new and wonderful shows. So we really do have something for everybody, and we hope that you will check it out. Hi, Connie Martins. She's here. So if you want to join in the conversation like Connie, 80% of our listening audience is listening only, and we do broadcast to every country in the world, believe it or not. But when you're listening, we can't see your comments. And if you know my show and the one on Thursday, you know they're both very audience participative, and I love when you join in. Otherwise, my amazing guest Paul and I would just be having a wonderful conversation. But you guys always add so much to it, so I'd love to have you join. So where you can go is to UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network on YouTube and Facebook. Normally, I'd say Canada's most haunted, but that's one of the ones we're having trouble with this evening. So hopefully it'll kick in. It said Facebook's working on it. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. I will be sharing it to my profile, which is public on Facebook under Lorilei Potvin. So you don't have to be a friend. If you come across it, you can see it and join in the convo. Where else are we streaming it? Also to Instagram on the Angel Rock. Hopefully it doesn't kick out after 1 hour. It's been doing that, so hopefully it doesn't. And they don't integrate the comments from Instagram over here with the rest of the platforms. So I will pop back and forth and try and have you join in the conversation if I see your comments. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm not. I would love for you to join us. Also, what do I want to tell you if you guys want to watch us on TV? We have a TV channel for the network. It's on Roku. So you're going to go to the channel store and you're going to type in UFO space P as in paranormal. And you're looking for a drop-down list. We're about the third or fourth one down. And you're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio. And that's how you can watch us on TV. I think I remembered everything, guys. Hi, Kathy Hanley Little. I do want to read my amazing guest, you guys. I've been looking forward to him coming on. I've been talking about him all last week. I know you guys are going to love him. So a little bit about him. Paul Nugent was born in the UK, is an author, has a business degree, has done TED Talks. He was raised in the Church of England, and we're going to be talking about his latest book, Mire, I hope I said that right, A Spiritual Journey into Cosmic Truth and the Dawning of a New World. Mire is the story of Paul's own spiritual quest to discover the universal journey we are all making and have been since the beginning of time, embracing alien worlds, and I've had some experience with that, higher and lower dimensions of reality. Definitely have experienced that, and living galaxies and much more. Welcome, Paul. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, Lorilei, and I've been very much looking forward to speaking with you. Our conversation, I know, is the better part of 2 hours. Um,
Yes, it's
great.
going to fly by. I will guarantee you.
Oh, I'm sure it will,
It
but it gives us the chance to sort of really get into the deeper aspects
will.
of this because rightfully, this is the kind of topic that should be addressed and listened to in depth by humanity as a whole,
I
in
agree.
my humble opinion. But I
No,
mean, it's big and it impacts us all because we've become very lost, so to speak, as a species in terms of what we really are a part of in the grand scheme.
I have to agree 100%. And part of the reason and mission I think that I'm here, and not from an egotistical sense, but is to help remind humanity of who we really are and
Mm,
how incredibly gifted and powerful we are and capable, that we're
mm,
not here by accident.
mm.
We're not the only ones in the universe. And I could go on, right?
Absolutely. We are eternal beings in
Mhm.
an eternal universe. And
Absolutely.
we've lost that sense of true being. And it, at the same time, we can see that our world is unraveling in so many different ways. And it's just sort of really essential and necessary, and I would say even inevitable, that we do begin to sort of grasp this far greater consciousness of what we really are a part of.
So I always kind of start at the beginning with my conversations. So, how did you get interested in this field? Did you always believe this way? And then I'm going to sort of segue into George King too. But as you know, as a child and when you were brought up, was these topics that were commonplace, or sort of how did you get into this?
Well, not to jump ahead and get into my book, but my book is in two parts. My, you said it correctly. The first part of the book is actually called The Things I Knew Before I Was Born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think that we all have that intuitive, innate sense of something bigger, of something greater,
Hmm.
uh, in a sort of spiritual, you know, we all have a soul, and that soul has memories of past lives, um, and a connection, literally, to spirit, something infinite. So for me, as a child,
Hmm.
I was, as you rightly mentioned, I grew up in England. I was born in England, grew up in England, spent the first 31 years of my life in England. And I just remember going through school. I wasn't very good at school. I was initially. I'm supposed to be quite bright, but at school, I certainly, as the years wore on, and we're talking sort of teenage years, but I became. Um, it became complicated for me, I suppose, because I just wasn't interested in what I was being taught. Because intuitively, I knew that there was something far bigger that
Hmm.
nobody was teaching, and none of the teachers seemed really to be aware of it. And
Yes.
as a consequence, I sort of dropped out. I didn't entirely drop out because I was a conscientious, obedient boy, I suppose. So I knew that I was supposed to study, but it held no interest for me. And the consequence was that I did fail my more serious exams, you could say.
I'm
And
just going to interject here. What I'm dying to
yeah,
say is, and I've had this conversation with my partner many times. Most people that are highly intelligent, I believe, that have sort of traveled the path that you have started as a child that you so graciously shared,
mm,
are of very high intelligence and they recognize, and I'm not discouraging anybody going to school. I mean, you're going to learn. But people that recognize what you did at a young age realize that all it really teaches you is to be able to follow rules and to sit and to follow directions. Yes, you do some learning, but I found so many people as adults have such incredible intelligence that you recognize that and you recognize there's much more because I don't use a lot of stuff that I went to university, not so much. School, yes. I don't know if
mm.
I'm off base here, but
No, very much so. I mean, I think Pink Floyd summed it up in the song "Another Brick in the Wall."
yes,
and
yes.
and I wasn't deliberately trying not to bring another brick in the wall. Um, it was just within me. I couldn't, wouldn't, and didn't go along with it. And it was bad, and it was very unfortunate for my parents because I was at a private, what we call a private school. We call it a public school. It's actually a private school. It was a fee-paying school. So, great cost to my parents. I'm afraid I came away empty-handed, except for some wonderful friends who I still have to this day. But so it was only then I had to sort of go and restudy those exams after a certain amount of chastisement from my mother. My father was far more sort of tolerant and forgiving because he was much the same way himself. But my mother was, I would say she was angry with me. She
Okay.
had to become a school teacher to help pay these school fees, and there I was sort of frittering it all away. So I did, and I managed to get the lowest passing grade in English literature that enabled me to go and study hotel management. I had no interest in hotel management, but it was something that I could do, with my one qualification from exams. And during that period of 3 years studying hotel management,
Okay.
I was introduced to the subject of wine, and that did resonate. I thought, oh, well, that's actually quite interesting. So the consequence of all that was that upon leaving higher education, I did venture upon a career in the wine trade, and that actually went quite well. But it was during that period that this sort of deeper sense of what my life was really about began to kick in. So it was instinctive and it was intuitive rather than anything that I went in search of. It found me, so to speak, rather than me
Okay.
looking for it.
So that's where you kind of got to the place. But now you're an author. Like I said, you've done some TED Talks. You've done, you've got a business degree. The hotel management, I understand in a way. I have two boys, and
Mm.
my eldest didn't go to school for hotel management. He went to school for multimedia, and he worked in news. He was a news reporter, could work all the equipment, and he hated it. But he found hotel management and loved it.
Mm.
Except now he's got a new job, and he is working with First Nation Two Spirit adolescents and First Nations women. Loves it and has gone back to school. Is now in his third year in social work.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with a career in the wine
I've
trade.
told them that all the time. Nothing wrong with it. I don't think kids should have to pick their lifelong career at 17, 16, 18 years of age.
Yeah, no, it's just it was never something for myself.
Mhm.
Um, and so there I was working in London in the wine trade, quite successful. You mentioned TED Talks. I've got to make that singular.
Okay. I just went by the name. I know you didn't do it too. Sorry. I apologize if I misled anybody. So thank
Yeah,
you for correcting me.
yeah. No, 10 actually, in 2013, a very good friend of mine called Suzanne Taylor, who has made documentaries about crop circles, and who's very sort of well connected with that whole sort of metaphysical spiritual movement. She put on a TEDx conference for
Okay.
in West Hollywood with Larry Dossey, Marianne Williamson, um,
Okay.
who else? Gosh, Russell Targ, who does remote viewing.
I know who Russell Targ is.
Right, she had a great array of speakers, including myself. Not that I matched them, but anyway, I was one of the speakers. And then about 2 weeks before the conference, and putting on a TEDx conference obviously takes a massive amount of work. You've got to jump through all kinds of hoops and go hurdles and all the rest of it. Takes a tremendous amount of time and money.
Mhm.
And anyway, about 2 weeks before the conference, TED started getting cold feet that we were not scientific enough. You may know that who's the biologist in England, famous biologist, Rupert Sheldrake and Graham Hancock.
I've heard
They
I
both
him.
had their
Yes, I know
talks.
who he is. Mhm.
Yeah, they both had their talks taken down by TED because TED didn't consider them as being sufficiently scientific. Although Rupert Sheldrake is a master of biology from Cambridge University. I mean, he defines being a scientist. But anyway, they got cold feet about our whole conference not being sufficiently scientific, so it was taken down. So we were actually an ex-TEDx.
Okay. But you still kind of did it, right?
Like I did it, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Suzanne managed to pull off the show. And yes, I did speak about the extraterrestrial contacts of Dr. George King, who founded the Aetherius Society. But I'm afraid, certainly at the time, probably it still is the case, that was too much of a stretch for TED. So she started her own organization called Sue Speaks, not TED Talks, but Sue Speaks.
I like that.
Sue standing for searching for unity in everything.
And you know what? I gotta say, that's a much more comprehensive and all-inclusive title, and I'm sure that people could speak more openly about topics. I bet when you've got that kind of business motto.
Absolutely. So that was, there I was working in the wine trade in London as a young man. Just sort of, it came from within me. As I say, I just knew there had to be more to life than having a career, having, theoretically getting married, having a mortgage, settling down, having kids. It just wasn't, I had to run away from it. Not that I did run away from it, but I needed to look for something else. And I turned actually, because, you mentioned I was raised in the Church of England. So I wasn't aware of anything else. So I picked up a copy of my own Bible and began reading the four Gospels. And I realized, here's someone who actually gets it, who understands how we should be living on earth. And I took it very seriously, took it very deeply. And it made me realize, I mean, in theory, England or Britain, and for that matter, the United States, Europe, the Western world, is a Christian country. And yet I was able to realize how far removed England, Britain, the United States are from true Christianity.
I have to agree with you. I'm going to hold that thought. I'm going to say hi. We got a few people here. I always like to let them know we see them. First of all, on Instagram, we have Dr. Frederick Woodard. He's been on the Angel Rock before with he's talked about his hypnosis and his book he's written. So thank you. He tunes in every week. I don't always get to say hi. We've got Bill Anderson 021 on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. We also have, that I haven't said hello to, Diane Brighton. She says hello to everybody, you and I as well, Paul, and Kathy Hanley Little. Sorry, I ended up ruling that out there for a sec. My computer, I was fixing our platforms while you're talking, listening to you. That's what happens when you're a mom, right? I think in a nurse, I'm not working with my back right now, but you still don't forget those multitasking skills. And Julie Evans, she comes up on UK as Julia Evans and on Facebook Julie, but she's from the UK. So I want to give her a huge shout out because I know it is 11:30 p.m. over there. So thank you for staying up to join us. And we got Michelle Wilfong. She says she switched over, I think, to her laptop. I think we got everybody. Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interject there, but I wanted to, you'll have to refresh my memory here with what did we leave off on? My God, my head is going in a million different directions.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I was just saying how
Christianity, how far away we are.
Yeah, right. I took it very seriously. I began by going to, Westminster Abbey because I didn't really know of any other church. So I was in London. Well, I'll go to Westminster Abbey, which I did. And I'd go there several times a week, early in the morning and Sunday evening songs. But then one Sunday, I had a few hours in the afternoon. I had time on my hands, so I wandered down a very major street in London called Whitehall, It goes past Downing Street and all that to Trafalgar Square, and in Trafalgar Square it was a wonderful old church called St. Martin in the Fields that
Okay.
I wandered into, and it just seemed far more intimate than Westminster Abbey. I mean, I love
Oh,
Westminster Abbey,
absolutely.
yeah, right. It's pretty austere, and I became quite involved at St. Martin's. They care for the homeless people, which was it just seems to sort of to be
Absolutely.
an aspect of Christianity, to care for people in greater need than oneself. And so I was active there for quite some time. But my boss, a wonderful human being, Nicholas Belfridge, he was very spiritually inclined himself, and he was studying Eastern philosophy at a school in London that
Okay.
he introduced me to, and I began to attend that as well. And the main book we initially studied was the Bhagavad Gita, which of course goes into karma and reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that although these things are not part of Orthodox Christianity, they certainly resonated with myself as being, fundamentally true. And
Do
so,
you know why not to interject here, because a lot of people wrestle with that, and the work, for example, that I'm doing, that's pretty well what I could reference. I never question people's belief systems or what their beliefs are, but I'm always fascinated when people don't believe that we really are an everlasting, incredible soul energy that never truly dies. And we're just in this lifetime right now, you and I, and people like Z Sun Dragon that's just joined us, Kevin, and everybody else that are listening, whatever, around the world, that we go on forever. We're just having a lifetime experience here to experience what life would be like as a human being.
yeah,
I've
well,
had past life regressions, is what I was going to ask, and proved it to myself.
the
So for yourself,
I think this is wrongly attributed to Deepak Chopra, not, but it actually, the original quote was from a Frenchman called uh, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who said, "We're not human beings having occasional spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having occasional human
absolutely.
experiences."
I think we've had other lives though. Like, I'm dying to get into the UFO, ET. My brain is all over the place tonight, and I apologize. I'm not usually like this. I think because I'm thinking about, is that working? Is that working? I gotta let it go. About the UFO, the ET, and how it goes into spiritualism. And I actually love that you started the discussion this way with your experiences in the Church of England. I was raised Catholic. And to me, and this is just my belief for anybody listening, I never tell people what to believe. But if I was always taught that God is my father, that's my belief. And I'm not saying that's everybody's. And God is everywhere. Why do I need to go to a special building to have a relationship? And to me, I have found with what I experienced that it was based on a lot of fear based. You must or you will burn. You must, you must, you must. Whereas I really gravitated, even some of the things you've talked about, feeding the homeless, or somebody needs some help and you don't have to do it, but you do it. Like, that's more of a gift to yourself. But it's about love and really trying not to judge others. We don't know what their life was all about. We've never walked a mile in their proverbial shoes, and we
Mm.
don't know what happened to them just before we had the experience with them. So I really resonate with what you're saying. And I'm going to ask you, just right off it just came to me, why do you think we're like that we don't think about these things? Do you think it's because we've been raised kind of like what you've shared and a little bit of what I've shared from
Well,
childhood?
that's a good question. I do think to a very great extent it is conditioning, uh,
Okay.
and
That was an easy way to say it.
well, it is an easy way to say it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I mean, when we sort of get into the more cosmic aspect of this conversation, particularly pertaining to Dr. George King, who founded the Aetherius Society, who we believe was a medium or contactee for beings from other worlds,
Yeah.
higher dimensions of the other planets in our own solar system. But one in particular, I suppose, to sort of dive into that, one of the intelligences who communicated through Dr. George King in over a number of years, but this particular series of transmissions constitute one of the major textbooks of the Ethereal Society. It's called The Nine Freedoms. And Dr. George King would go into, as a master of yoga in his own right, would go into what we call a positive yogic samadhic trance, very elevated state of consciousness, deep meditation. And it was in that state that they were able to use him as a medium. And this is in terms of answering your question as to why it is. This intelligence, who goes by the name of Mars Sector 6, so the presumption is that he's a Martian intelligence, gave this series of 9 teachings. We call them the 9 freedoms, the first of which is bravery. And it requires, in terms of why we're not like that, well, it requires a bravery. It requires the bravery to honor and respect and get in touch with, listen to, if you like, one's own conscience. And on the whole, we don't do it. We're running around a little bit like scared rabbits, or conforming. You've got to be this way, you've got to do it. Well, because they're telling us to do this, etc., etc. Not to be not to deliberately be a revolutionary, or if you are going to be a revolutionary, be a revolutionary of love, but not as a reactionary. Because you mentioned it early on. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and throughout the entire day, it is all about love. The whole experience is an experience of love. But we humans have lost us. There was a wonderful Russian writer called Solzhenitsyn, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I remember reading an article he wrote in London back in 1984. And he said the trouble with the West, and I always think he should have said the trouble with the world, but he was probably mindful of the Soviet Union. So the trouble with the West is that we've lost our consciousness of God. And it really sums the whole thing up. We have lost this connection to spirit, to the divinity, to the wholeness, to the magnificence of the vastness of everything, of creation. And as a consequence of losing that connection, we've created the exact world that we have, which is a frightened world, which comes back, I suppose, to having that bravery, that courage to heed one's own in an intuitive sense, which is what I found myself doing, in my teenage years and coming out of college, etc. I couldn't ignore it. It was too strong, too compelling for me to ignore, and so I didn't. And it's led me to where I am now, and to ultimately writing a book about it all.
I'm incredible. When you first said the 9, I was thinking it's interesting because one of my close friends that's from the UK, married a Canadian, they now live in Mexico, and her group, she hasn't kept it a secret. I mean, she was public. Her collective she connects with has labeled themselves the Circle of A. Now, I believe connecting to angels and guides, and I'm not special. I think we all have this ability. I think all young children can do it. Animals can do it. And just like riding a bike, should you choose to access that, it's going to take a little bit of work and a little bit of practice, but it's like remembering, if you will. But where I'm going with this is, with doing the Akashic records and the amount of study and stuff, I keep running across the Council of 9, right? The masters, if you will. Even when I go into the Akashic records, it's the masters, teachers, and loved ones. It's a collectiveness of many, including, it's not limited to just angels or saints or religion. It could be beings from other planets or what have you. I've also had some close my eyes, blink. When I open them, an hour and a half has gone by. I am kilometers away, my car going in the opposite direction, in front of a building I've never seen, even though I've lived in this city my whole life, right? But my whole point is, too, when I do connect with what I believe to be ET, the one thing they have shared that fascinates them, and this is what they've shared with me, is human beings are a young race, and they recognize that it's kind of like a wizened parent or loved one looking down, recognizing that they have shared that our propensity for violence and a lot of more of the lower vibrational emotions, if you will, confound them at times. And
Mm.
they're being patient, watching over us, but they know that we have the ability to, say, communicate telepathically or
Mm.
to do this, but they're waiting patiently. I don't know if you've run across that with your, writing your book and your experience.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I would, in one sense, we're all ancient. We're as ancient as the cosmic
Absolutely.
intelligences. We all began, in the so-called in the beginning. Um, but I mean, again, I cover this in the book, but and you've got the wonderful. Well, I said wonderful, but you have the story or the myth of the Garden of Eden,
Myth,
where
yes,
we
I
chose
believe that.
free will, and choosing free will, I'm afraid to say, has got us into rather a lot of trouble. Um,
I do.
so we've become stunted. We've I mean, I go again. I go into this in the book, and this is all sort of teachings of the Aetherius Society, not exclusive to the Aetherius Society at all. But we've had previous civilizations, the civilization of Atlantis, before that Lemuria, both of which we destroyed through the intense misuse of atomic power, and we keep setting ourselves back. I mean, our understanding, again, is that we actually came to Earth over 18 million years ago from a
Interesting.
planet we destroyed called Maldek. All that remains of Maldek is the asteroid belt
Hmm.
between Mars and Jupiter.
I
Uh,
believe that. I
right.
believe that.
But because
Absolutely.
we're an aspect of creation, we can't suddenly just sort of disappear. We're a part of it. We're a part of the wholeness. It is all about love, and so we needed somewhere to continue this evolutionary journey that we're making. And the only place that was possible was Earth. And Earth has withheld herself for 18 million years, which to us is a very long time. In cosmic time, it's actually, it's almost a blink of an eye. But
That's what I meant by young race, right? And I believe
right,
what you're
because we
talking
keep
about.
setting ourselves back.
Yes.
Um, that's the problem. And then, of course, along came the Second World War, and which culminated with the explosion of two atom bombs to end it with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading
Right.
into the Cold War when we went further by developing the hydrogen bomb.
Yep.
And it was in that period, both in the Second World War, but particularly in the Cold War of the 50s and 60s, which was also the height of UFO sightings, when the term flying saucer became coined, because these intelligences who've never gone down this route, as we say in England, route, as you say it, or you're Canadian.
Anyway,
I'm not
potato.
sure what do you say, route or route in Canada?
No, well, either way, potato,
You
potato.
go either way. Well, anyway, but they'd never gone down this path. Um, and never set themselves back, but they could see here is humanity once again, following Maldek, Lemuria, and Atlantis, once again threatening not only to destroy itself, but theoretically, and well, certainly potentially, destroying the planet. And that's a big no-no, because the Mother Earth is a highly evolved, conscious,
You're
intelligent
reading my mind. I was just going to say that.
being, like going herself through evolution, albeit on a different sort of scale to ourselves, as we are different to the spider and the ant and the butterfly and the daffodil. But we're all still a part of it. And so that's how the Aetherius Society began, Dr. George King, as a medium to communicate this message from far more evolved and enlightened intelligences existing upon the higher dimensions of the other planets in our solar system. Not that they have lower realms, we do here on Earth because we're that backward and karma is exact. And so we need to temporarily go some of us anyway, for a period between incarnations to a lower realm. But they're all coming from a higher sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, that's how the Etheric Society began.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to back up a bit. So, Kathy, a few comments. Hi, I'm going to say hi to Julie Jean Bassett. You guys, I've shout her out every time. Incredible animal communicator, shamanic practitioner. Check her out at juliejeanbassett.com. And Kathy Henley Little said, I've always felt that we were Martians. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit. So, who exactly was Dr. George King? And I'm looking at some of these talking points, and I always appreciate when Gavin, I've got to give him a shout out, right? Gavin Davies, their publisher. He says, who is George King and his contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, to whom he referred to as cosmic masters. So who was, because I'm sure people are wondering, who was Dr. George King? He sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that's central to absolutely everything. I mean, it's without Dr. George King, there'd be no Etheric Society, there'd be no book Mire. Dr. George King was born in England in a county called Shropshire in 1919.
Okay.
His mother certainly, and even more so his grandmother, were both very psychic, and he as a child, was very psychic. One of the, would see fairies and all the rest of it, hear things. Had some very unusual experiences as a schoolboy. And then along came the Second World War, 20 years later in 1939. So he was 20 years of age, of prime fighting age, when the country was looking for men just like him to go and sign up and, let's go and kill Nazis. And while he could recognize that Nazism and Hitler were, a great threat, at the same time, again, his soul, his conscience knew, thou shalt not kill is a law. Mm-hmm. You don't kill. And so he became a conscientious objector, but as I say, he recognized that, Nazism was a very evil force. And so he joined the fire brigade in London and went through the Blitz. He was a section leader. And he saw the madness, the inhumanity of mankind towards mankind. I mean, elderly people, civilians, from babies to grandparents, they bombed in their homes. He was there rescuing them, rushing into crumbling buildings, putting out tremendous fires. It's the madness of that and the tragedy of that. And he obviously wanted to not just so much understand it, but try and do something about it, because this was a chaotic world. Absolutely. And his answer was to practice yoga, which was very uncommon, I suppose, in the 40s and certainly 50s.
I believe it would have been, yes.
And he did this very intensely. He was practicing various forms of yoga, primarily what we call pranayama, or in Sanskrit it's pranayama, it's yoga breathing exercises. Mantra yoga, hatha yoga, obviously, various forms of yoga, and he was doing it very intensely for up to 8 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, over a 10-year period. And I can't say, the most I've ever practiced yoga in an intense way has just been for a couple of hours. I used to practice, well, still do, but if you do an hour, you get into a certain space. I know that from doing 2 hours, it's more than double that space. You do go deeper. Far deeper, but I've never done 8 hours.
Well, I can't even imagine.
Day and day. And the consequence of that was that a force that we all have at the base of the spine called the Kundalini, these are all Sanskrit terms, rose through a channel in the spine called the Sushumna channel, opening the chakras or psychic centers. And he was able to go into the elevated state of samadhi, with a full rise of Kundalini into the Christ and crown chakra. And he was able to do this at will. And with this ability, he literally had the experience of the goal of yoga, which is unity, because one knows that it's all oneness, that it's all literally in the here and now, it's all oneness. It's all cosmic. It's all divine. It is, if you like, a state of ecstatic bliss. Um, and it was with this ability to be able to go into that state that he was contacted by, a full understanding in the Aetherius Society, by far more evolved intelligences who you could say have never gone below cosmic consciousness. We haven't got to cosmic consciousness. They've never gone below cosmic consciousness. Yeah. Who were able to contact him. And the first of these masters, we believe, was a Venusian who goes by the name of Aetherius. This was on May the 8th.
I wondered where that name came from. Thank you. Right. Can I ask you one thing? It came up before we went live. I don't know if it came from Spirit or not. But do you believe that that there were Venusians here back in the 1950s, Valiant Thor?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I believe that too. Many people don't know about it, but I believe it.
Right, indeed. But we, because I understand, I think it was Valiant Thor. I think you might be referring to the writings of Frank Strange's, who sort of approached, government leaders, but who were investigating.
He was trying to convince them, though, not to go ahead with the weapons they were creating.
Well, that was the whole thing. That comes back to Lemuria and Atlantis, and even before that, Maldek, because we've been there before. We're dealing with the most sacred energy in the universe, basically. I mean, what's within the atom. And, I touch upon this in my book because, even now, certainly at the Large Hadron Collider in
You are reading my mind, so I was just thinking about that.
Right. They're attempting to sort of harness the full potential of what they call the God potential. I believe that in the times of Atlantis, the weapons were used with the Brahma weapon, which is the weapon of God. I'm sure our scientists, just as they were able to create atom bombs and later hydrogen bombs, will in time be able to develop that full potential, so to speak. But we as human beings are not spiritually evolved enough to understand it. Right. And the danger, the tremendous danger, is that it will be turned in, it will be weaponized. We're already a very fraught world, and politically, environmentally. They talk about wars over water, etc., etc. So yes, there was very much that concern. Well, that is, I'd say, the primary concern of these cosmic intelligences, not only not to destroy ourselves and set ourselves back karmically, evolutionarily again, as we've done before, Maldek, Lemuria, Atlantis, but even more importantly, for the sake, as they say, of the Mother Earth as a highly evolved cosmic intelligence. I mean, destroying a planet, as we did with Maldek, is a very, very, very serious karmic, you could say, crime. A mistake is too light a word for it. But again, we've got to come back to this overall picture that it is all love. I mean,
because we don't just affect ourselves. We are in a universe, and there's other universes and universes, indeed, and we're all connected.
And we're here to evolve. We're primarily here to evolve. It's, as a mother, you'll know that, children do things that are in so-called wrong or not in their best interest, and you want to sort of, not necessarily slap them, but let them know that's not the way to go.
And show them the right way. Right. I'm one of those parents. There's consequences, not physical, but I always led by example. And one of my biggest things was praise them. And when you catch them doing the things you would like to see, we have a discussion about the things maybe we don't like.
Right.
And we move on. I have a son with severe autism. I have 2 boys. So, that's challenges in itself, but I've found for myself it's been very effective. I don't know, but it would be nice if we kind of could connect to a higher intelligent, like the cosmic masters and the sort of the same principle. Maybe I'm living in a daydream, but it would be nice.
Well, that's what the whole message of these cosmic masters has been. Who spoke through Dr. George King over a period of 43 years, but for 25 of those years, where he would literally go into this very elevated state of consciousness, as I say, we call it the positive yogic samadhic trance, very elevated, where actually the body became paralyzed, and because all the heat, all the focus was on these higher chakras, and coming out of taking one of these transmissions, in all he took over 600. He needed tremendous massage to get the blood flowing again, to bring him back. I mean, it's extremely difficult and extremely dangerous to do. And in saying that, I mean, it's not as though we can just easily do it. No, it takes a tremendous amount of training and effort to be able to do it. And anyway, that is how the teachings that make up the Ethereal Society came into being.
I've seen the name. I can never ever pronounce it properly. Now I'll know. And I've often wondered because it very much resonated with me, but I just, when you see something and you're reading and you make a mental note to go back and then you get busy. So when it came up again with your book and a bit of the research I was doing for the show, I mean, I'm super excited to have you on here and talk about these things because I think they're vitally important. I love that you brought up that, Mother Earth and what Mother Earth really is. It's not just a planet and what the consequences could be if we continue, because it's almost like we're in well, I've heard the wheel of time, but it's almost like we just keep going in these cycles, get to that point, and we create the same mistake that was created many years, many millennia before. And we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, right?
We do, but there comes an end to free will, so to speak. I mean, the point is that the Earth can only withhold herself for so long. Our understanding, again, in the Ethereal Society, and we're not alone in this at all. I mean, it's part of theosophical thought, and probably no doubt elsewhere as well. But is that after the destruction of Lemuria, what we call the ionosphere was put up around Earth, the Theosophists refer to as the ring past not, to sort of protect us because we'd karmically set ourselves back, such that these cosmic emanations that naturally flow through the cosmos would have been too strong for us to be able to endure karmically. This was reinforced. The ionosphere was reinforced after Atlantis. But at the same time, it denied natural free flow of energies, which the Mother Earth ordinarily should be receiving. And so she's held herself up. As I say, I mean, 18 million years for us seems like it is a very long time. But cosmically, it actually isn't. But, the way I liken it in the book is it's like us having to hold our breath for an extended period of time while we're under duress at the same time. That and the time had been reached whereby it was necessary to give the Mother Earth or the logos of the planet an infusion of energy, cosmic energy, that she had denied herself, so that she could reset herself in the path that ordinarily she would and should have been taking within the solar system. Because again, I mean, I do hope you really have to sort of read the book, so to speak. But we're part of something vast. This solar system is a part of the Milky Way, which obviously is just sort of beyond comprehension how big it is. But it's only one of billions of galaxies.
Exactly.
And the Milky Way, together with, I think it's about roughly 100,000 other galaxies in this sector of the universe, are all moving at accelerating speed towards a super cluster of galaxies known as Laniakea, which is a lovely Hawaiian word that means immense heaven. This is what's really going on in the big picture. Earth and this solar system had to, following the destruction of Malde, had to withhold itself, at least for a period of time, because of this sort of meddling little creature called mankind that we love on the one hand, but on the other hand is a miscreant. Again, the allegory of the Garden of Eden, choosing free will. We've forgotten our divine nature. We've separated ourselves from the oneness. And in that self-applied ignorance, you could say, we've created the I wouldn't call it hell, but we've created the very fractured, divisive, dysfunctional world that we have. And that all has to change, because fundamentally the Mother Earth is changing. It's she who, her vibrations are being quickened. This infusion of energy that she was given in a tremendous cosmic manipulation back in 1964, known as the primary, we call it the primary initiation of Earth.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's withhold. I mean, she could have released that energy in a matter of seconds, and everything would have been quickened and changed, and we'd have been thrown off onto some other etheric realm. No, these energies are being gradually released, and I think you can tell and sense it in every aspect of our life. In fact, I'm very curious to sort of learn that this age that we used to have we had the age of enlightenment and the medieval age and whatever. This is now called the exponential age, because literally everything is going exponential. And I would certainly attribute it to this initiation of Earth that the planet received. And there is a gradual release, and everything is being quickened. And the pressure, and it literally is it's karmic pressure, the pressure is on us to change, to become aware, become more conscious of our innate divine nature.
Yeah.
So to speak, get back with the program.
I agree. And I really actually feel it, and I'm not the only one. Even it's interesting you said 1964. I was born in 1965. I was thinking, is that interesting? It happened the year before I was born, and you said it's been gradual. But where I'm going with this is a lot of people are feeling the shift, especially with time.
Yeah.
And I know time is a man-made concept, but the thing is, time literally feels to me like it has doubled, like moving forward.
Well, the master aetherist, going back, I guess, to the aetherist study, or the master aetherist, he gave a wonderful transmission in 1954, November 1954.
This is the Venusian you're talking about?
Yes, that Venusian, okay, from whom we take our name. And he said the evolution of mankind is now being speeded up in order to reach a certain point within a certain time limit.
Because we need it.
Because we need it. And I think that, and again, I do cover it in the book, but I think that he said that because he would have known, as a cosmic intelligence within this small family of planets we have here in our solar system, that an extraterrestrial craft we refer to as satellite number 3 would be coming into orbit on a regular basis. This was
interesting. I got to hear more.
Yeah. Well, it's in the book. It's all in the book.
Well, tell us what you can, the breadcrumbs, so people will go buy your book. But if you can, please.
The purpose of satellite number 3 is it enhances all spiritual actions. So anyone who consciously or otherwise, but is literally tapping into that higher part of oneself that allows or enables them to engage in an unselfish nature. We're very selfish here, and that is what has retarded us. But when we act in a way that is selfless, or what we might term, spiritual in inverted commas, that frequency of energy has been enhanced whenever satellite number 3 has been coming into orbit of Earth. And I think that's just a major catalyst for this shift. Satellite number 3 first started coming into orbit in 1955. So 6 months earlier, Master Aetherius, the evolution of mankind is now being speeded up. It is. I mean, time, a week just goes by like that. I mean, I think we all can see it. We all sense it.
Yeah, like Kathy Henley Little said, time feels like it is speeding up. I can honestly say that because I've injured my back, so I am off permanently. And I am more busy now than when my children were little. I was working full time. I had researched and set up a diploma nursing course at the college and I worked 3 jobs. I am more busy now, and it literally feels like I have half the amount of time that I had previous to this. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, welcome to the world, Lorilei, because I think that's the same for all of us. There is
Dragon, Kevin. I also find that time is faster.
It comes back to this literal sort of karmic pressure, for want of another term.
Can you explain that a little bit for people listening, say on the other side, wherever, on the other side of the world, anybody going, what does that mean?
What do I mean by karmic pressure? I guess to use probably a very poor analogy, but it's the only one I can think of right now. I mean, there's the one about the frog in the boiling pot.
Got you.
And the pot is beginning to boil, and we're frogs in that pot, and we need to adapt to it, because this is the sort of the frequency, the energy, or the frequency of energy of the whole planet is changing, is shifting, is upgrading. It's getting, when I say it's getting hotter, I'm not referring to climate change, but in that karmic sense, it's being speeded up. And so that is putting an inevitable pressure on each and every one of us to not only become aware of it, but to adapt in the light of it, to change. We're being evolved. There's a pressure to evolve because there's no going back to the old way. Because free will still exists. Our understanding in that sense is that for those who are unable or choose not to shift in that way, on going through death, and one doesn't know, how long the earth is going to be the way she is. But for those who choose still to remain in darkness, so to speak, in ignorance, in negative ways, negative vibrations, everything negative, etc., there's still an aspect of God, the way we were when we destroyed Maldek. They will be reborn on another planet that has a frequency that is tolerant of that frequency.
I have heard that.
But this Earth, the vibrations are quickening, are being changed. So the karmic pressure is a choice that we all have. How much do we want to become conscious of it? How much do we want to sort of align ourselves with the great spiritual teachings that have been given to us by beings such as Jesus, who we also believe was a Venusian, or the Buddha, who we also believe was a Venusian, or Sri Krishna, who we believe actually was a Saturnian. And for us to become far more enlightened, such that we realize that death is an apparition, that we are eternal beings, that we're part of something infinite, we're part of something vast, we're part of something beautiful, that the energy and essence of the whole thing is love, if you like, but in a far more sort of cosmic sense of what that actually means. And to start to live and to be as the divine creator always intended us to be.
I have a question for you. And actually, I was even thinking this. So thank you, Kathy. So we hear this in the new buzzword that you hear out there over the last few years of light worker, which I guess I know I would would fall under there. It sounds like some of the work you're doing, well, most of it, you're love oriented. That's what it should be, basically bringing love and light, right? But
Right.
we're hearing
And
about
intelligence, and yeah, and I like to keep intelligence in there because it's not all sort of light and fluffy. Because there's a wisdom in there too. There's an innate wisdom. There's an innate intelligence in there, a knowing.
I agree. So I know in this field of spirituality, which I have seen even a lot of people slapping the label of spirituality on religion, but that would be a whole different show. But the point is, in this field, we've been hearing about this. I'll read Kathy Henley Little's question just for people that are listening. Is the speeding up of time to get enlightenment faster? Because this is what we're hearing about, the planet ascension in this
Mm.
spiritual realm. So,
Mm.
and then Kathy says you just answered it for her. So,
Well, I would say yes. To Kathy, I would say yes.
Mhm.
We need to get where we should have been 18 million years ago. Just to sort of sum this 18 million years ago, and again, I do go touch upon it again in the book. But if we understand that the planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, which wrap your head around that, we can't. But if we say, okay, let's call that 4.5 billion years 24 hours. This time yesterday. So the Earth was born or created this time yesterday, 24 hours ago. 18 million years on that time scale is just the last 6 minutes. Just while we were while I was banging on. And Lemuria was less than a minute ago, since Kathy posted her question. And Atlantis has been in the last few seconds of that 24-hour day. So it helps sort of understand this time scale that we're in. But and the change that is imminent, utterly imminent.
Okay, that makes sense, and thank you. Because I forget to tell people. Well, I know I mentioned before we started, but there might be people tuning in that have never heard these terms before, especially since it does potentially go out all around the world. So if I ask you questions like that, it's just because I'm thinking. I almost feel like I bet you there's somebody who's going to ask, "What does that mean?" I'm just going to address somebody here on Instagram, Stephen Spencer 8210. Thank you for watching the Paranormal Survivor episode. You'd like to talk to me about it, you're more than welcome. You can message me on Instagram, on Facebook. If you hang around to the end, we will tell you how, more importantly, to get a hold of our fabulous guest, Paul Nugent, as well as myself. Also, we're supposed to do a station ID, but I always get into these great conversations with my guests, and now's a perfect time. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, brought to you on 105.3 FM out of Mississippi and 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans. This is I almost said my Thursday night show. This is the Angel Rock, and I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, and we have our fantastic guest here, Paul Nugent. So thank you for joining us. Sorry, Paul, got to throw that in there.
You do what you have to do, Lorilei.
So what was your first encounter like? So how did you get drawn to this society and Dr. George King, and what was your first experience like with him?
Well, I was in my mid-20s, I suppose.
As you had said, yeah.
Yeah, and I was very serious. I was very serious about it all. When I say took life seriously, I took this intuitive sense seriously. I knew that there was more, that there were answers, that we're part of something utterly incredible, utterly fantastic, life itself. And as I say, I took that very seriously. Began, as I mentioned at the beginning, by reading the four Gospels and then studying Eastern philosophy at a school in London. Going to a place in the north of Scotland called Findhorn, which is a wonderful place that sort of recognizes the nature spirits, the Devic kingdom. And then I was introduced, around the same time, to this organization, the Aetherius Society, with this yoga master. Well, I'd not, come across any yoga master who the society claimed Jesus had spoken through him on 12 consecutive Sundays in 1958. well, this was the same Jesus that had come across in the four Gospels, but still alive, still exist. And so I went along to the Aetherius Society. I heard some of these 12 blessings, as I say, given on, it's like a cosmic extension to the Sermon on the Mount, but given in 1958. They were very profound. They were serious. They were profound. They were extraordinary. I knew it was too big just to ignore and brush aside. And so I started sort of getting more involved with the Aetherius Society, or examining more of their teachings about the Mother Earth. I'd never really thought of UFOs, certainly hadn't thought about life on other planets. So I, more than scratched the surface. I started investigating it in a very, as I say, in a very serious way. And behind it all was this, so-called yoga master, Dr. George King, who, although he was English, but since 1959, he was primarily resident in the United States. And but there was an aura about him, as there is about any master. And as I became more involved in the Aetherius Society, I became a member of the Aetherius Society, even joined its voluntary staff as a way of sort of helping with the work. And accepting George King, you could say, as my spiritual master, but someone who still I hadn't met. And, it was increasingly important for me, I suppose, to meet this master. I mean, if you think of I don't want to put it in the same category at all, but as an analogy, if one had come across the teachings of Jesus 2,000 years ago, while he was still alive, one would inevitably, I would assume, want to meet Jesus if you can, at least to sort of see him, if possible, shake his hand, see what he looks like, say hello.
Have that conversation and all the burning questions if you really could, right?
Right. So, and I still hadn't, I'd seen him, but I hadn't met him.
Okay.
So in 1989, I traveled to the American headquarters of the Aetherius Society, which are still in Hollywood, California. And I met him. And but you obviously can sort of probably assume my sort of anticipation and excitement, albeit in a sort of controlled way. But and he didn't disappoint. In fact, if anything, I think in certain ways, the more advanced one is, the more ordinary one is. There was no, there was certainly, he's not on earth to put on party tricks or anything. He'd done that with these transmissions. I mean, in the book, I go much, much, much further than this, because about these whole changes that are taking place on us, because we do have lower astral realms. We do have, so-called dark forces who are influencing the conditioning that we have on much of the surface of our world. That all has to be transmuted. That can't exist. The more that we come into this so-called new age, new world, that has to be, as I say, transmuted. And our understanding in the Aetherius Society is there have been adepts, cosmic adepts, or avatars, to give it its Sanskrit terminology, who've been on Earth in the last, certainly within the last 100 years, to deal with that. We actually believe George King is one of those avatars who went into the lower astral realms to transmute some of these worst aspects of evil that we've had here.
That's incredible.
Yeah, literally since Malde. So, through they brought about, they engineered the destruction of Lemuria, similarly Atlantis. These are the dark forces, who want the wars, who want the hatred, who want the confusion, who want the ignorance, who want the drugs, etc., the crime, etc., that we have. It exists. It's all too real. It's all too tragic. That all, it's strong, it's powerful, it needs to be transmuted. Yes, we can all help. I mean, it is in a way the Lord of the Rings, but it's the Lord of the Rings for real. and we're the little people of Middle Earth, the hobbits, these sort of little creatures who like their second breakfasts. But we also need to get involved in the fight. Yeah. And so I was aware of this. I was aware of who I was meeting. I was meeting this incredibly important, powerful human being on the one hand, cosmic adept on the other hand, rolled into one. And as I say, but you met the man, but you knew behind it, behind the eyes.
But couldn't you just feel it? Because, like, with you speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that he was perfectly ordinary, wasn't doing party tricks. But I could I don't even know if I could put it into words, but you speaking about it, maybe ordinary, but you knew that you were kind of in the presence of greatness. Like, you could feel this, not from an ego sense power, but this incredible calmness and peace and love and wisdom, like everything you could think of, all emanating, and I'm getting goosebumps, energetically from him. You just knew that you were in the presence of somebody that, although they were aware they were all these things, that wasn't who they were, what they were about. They were aware of it. Do you get what I'm saying? But they weren't emanating that out. And you could almost just feel it. I don't know how else to say it, but I never met him, but just from me talking about him.
Well, not only do I get what you're saying, Lorilei, but you've said it better than I can, because you've summed it up exactly.
That spirit, because Dr. George is no longer with us, is he, or is he?
No, he isn't. I was actually with him. I helped him, and I was there when he passed on. I was there.
Oh, what a beautiful gift to me.
So the relationship became very close.
And that was from him then, or spirit, because when I get goosebumps, that's from spirit. I call it.
One of the things he said about the Master Jesus is that the Master Jesus was a very great actor. He would also say he was a very good carpenter. They're very practical as well. But yes, you're in the presence of greatness. You're in the presence of something that is not of this earth. In fact, when he was born, I mentioned right at the beginning that his mother was very psychic, his grandmother was very psychic, and the first remark his grandmother said, they were both obviously the mother was present at his birth, but so was his grandmother, and she said, "This one is not of this earth." She was very perceptive. And he wasn't. So I came into the presence of someone who, on the one hand, I knew was a great master in the true sense, and yet at the same time in human form. And it was, it was, how can I describe it? It was a sense of coming home in a way, of coming full circle. And it's why in part one of my book, again, as I say, it's the things I knew before I was born. I think there was a destiny in it. I think there was an inevitability.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's been an inevitability about me writing this book. I think I had to do it. I think, as I said, he knew I would do it. It's why I became very close to him in his final years, in order to know him, in order to be able to write this book. This book, dare I say it, I believe, and thank people like Gavin Davis and Collective Ink for also appreciating it. It is a story that needs to be told.
Well, but he lives on. He lives on through your words too, right, Paul?
Exactly. Because it's very largely an untold story. Because when you get people who believe that Jesus came from Venus and who communicated through this Earthman in 1958 on 12 consecutive Sundays, the vast majority of the world are going to shut you down and walk away and laugh and ridicule you and dismiss it. And that has really been, to a large extent, the history of the Aetherius Society. But there was a wonderful Hindu saint called Swami Vivekananda who said, lies go with the wind. Truth can go against the wind. Because this is a true story. The world, the earth is a living being. Sky people do exist. We go on beyond death. That it is all about love. We have a purpose and a role here. We are here to transmute evil. We're here to come into our full potential, to rise to the occasion. And that occasion is today, is now. We've entered it. We always have. But it's particularly poignant now with the quickening and the great change that is going on. And so
I am fascinated by this. I know I'm not even going to get to ask you half of what we're talking about. I'm going to have you, if you're open to, I'm putting you on the spot, but have you back. We're not done yet, but we've got less than just under half an hour left. That's how fast it goes by. But what I want to ask you, have you had your own experiences with UFOs, ETs, and the Cosmic Masters?
My own experience with the Cosmic Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Let your comfortable
share. On the one hand, yes, and on the one hand, no, but on the one hand, yes.
Okay.
And on the hand that is yes, it's not anything I think that one can or should speak about.
I get you.
It's kind of too deep. It's kind of too important. It's kind of too. It's not of relevance or value to anybody else, so to speak.
I completely get that, and I completely.
I mean, these beings exist, but again, the world we live in likes celebrity. It likes party tricks. It wants, show and tell, etc. But none of it is about that. It's it's greater than that. It's far, and it gives, and it's for us to rise to it rather than for us to sort of sit there in the stalls eating popcorn, for it to come and show itself. No, it's for us to go and find it. Jesus said the wonderful thing: "Seek and you'll find."
Mm-hmm.
And it's profoundly true. But you'll only find it if that seeking is deep and is sincere and is very strong. Mm-hmm. And for those who have that, they'll find it.
That's a perfect answer. So instead, and I'm going to ask you this because we sort of started to touch on it. Now I know you don't want to give it all away, but can we talk about some of the core principles or teachings of the society? And I'm just going to let my dog out because she's being a pain in the butt. I'm not going anywhere. I'm opening the door and letting her out the door. But would you mind sharing some of that?
Not in the slightest. I thought I had the door closed here, and I see it's been pushed ajar, and the cat wandered in.
My dog is
thankfully she hasn't
ding dong here. So go ahead. I can hear you. I'll be back in like literally 5 seconds.
Okay? I'll wait. I'll wait till you come back, Lorilei.
Okay. Usually she's so well behaved, but if Spirit is around, my dog, I have a German Shepherd, and I don't know what it is. That's why I always mention Julie Jean Bassett, because she's worked with my animals. I took my animal communication course, and I don't think she'll mind me sharing, but she has told me she's never met an animal in all the years of working with animals, that my dog is so connected to the universal consciousness and basically what some of the things we're talking about. And I jokingly said, well, look what her mom does.
well, you'll be fascinated and hopefully pleased to know that George King loved animals, loved dogs, and had a German Shepherd.
No way.
He had a German Shepherd called Chrissy.
They are a special breed. Like, I've had dogs my whole life. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk nonstop about dogs for everybody, though we probably could, and animals. But German Shepherds seem to bond with one person, and they love their family and what have you, but it's the one, and they cannot be apart. It's literally like your two halves coming together. It's incredible.
Well, that was his last dog, was a German Shepherd.
And I love cats too, so I have a cat.
Yeah. Coming back to your question, what are the core teachings or principles of the Aetherius Society? First of all, I'd say there's nothing new in these teachings. I'd say it's a revival of ancient teachings. I'd say it's a revival, certainly, of indigenous teachings. That all of creation is living. Everything is interrelated. Absolutely. And in that sense, you can call it spiritual, because everything is of this same oneness. And so that obviously, as we've touched on, includes the planet, which, the indigenous people obviously know and recognize that the earth is a living being. The sun is a living being. These are wonderful teachings given by Jesus in the 12 blessings, those series of, which is what brought me into the Ethereal Society, listening to those as 12 blessings, those teachings. That life goes on beyond there. Death is okay. The physical body has died, but the soul, the mental energy, the emotional energy is still there. That goes to another realm of frequency, another dimension. Either, you mentioned your own psychic experiences. That we go to a realm of frequency to which karmically we demand. Whether it's a lower realm or a higher realm, for a certain period of time, as determined by our higher self, our superconscious self, until we are reborn into a certain set of circumstances, to use the talent, what we've learned, but also learn the lessons that we need to learn.
Agreed.
This process goes on through reincarnation. All with the ultimate objective of gaining, as came up earlier in the conversation, enlightenment. We're here to evolve. We're here to gain enlightenment, as demonstrated by the Buddha, as demonstrated by Christ and other masters. That's our heritage too. When we have can experience that state of cosmic consciousness that we also discussed, when we can bring that state about at will, and it will take a few lifetimes, but we can all speed it up by being conscious that is our purpose, and doing the way we live our life in the light of that, and yogic practices that we can use to assist us, but primarily being of service actually in this day and age.
I agree.
We attain that, and when we've attained it, then we go through the initiation of ascension, which of course Jesus demonstrated for us, and we join, or we can become what's known as an ascended master.
Yes.
You mentioned this earlier on. It's known by other terms. It's known as the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, or even in some circles as the Great White Brotherhood. White having absolutely nothing to do with color, but more with the magic, white, as in white magic. These are masters of white, coming back to Lord of the Rings. But it doesn't end there. You see, the understanding was that the Eastern understanding is that nirvana or enlightenment is the ultimate end. The teachings that have been given through Dr. George King, particularly in the 9 Freedoms, as mentioned at the beginning, is that life goes on beyond this earth. Ascension, but ascension to what? Not some eternal mythical heaven, although you could see it in those terms, I suppose, but on the other planets. We go on to life on one of the other planets in our solar system.
Right.
And this is all in the 9 Freedoms, culminating with Saturnian existence, which is the most evolved planetary civilization culture in this solar system. And this is a tremendous exponential curve. I mean, the difference between us and Venus, so to speak, is huge. But the distance between Venus and Saturn is infinitely greater, as strange as that may sound. And then beyond that, even solar existence. The sun is a living intelligence with life, but incredibly evolved life. And it's all in this endless journey. The yogis describe it as this coming to know that. The creation, manifestation is coming to know itself as God. It is beautifully illustrated in the 12 blessings. The 11th of those blessings is, blessed are the supreme lords of creation, who've even brought into being the initial potential, but it's still not the absolute, which is the 12th blessing. And it says in the 11th blessing, the supreme lords of creation, these are the gods of the gods. In other words, these are the gods of the galaxies. These are the gods of the superclusters of galaxies. These are the gods of the solar systems, the stars. These are the gods of the gods. And yet, when it gets to the 12th blessing, which is a blessing to the absolute, as in God, I suppose, it says, not even the supreme lords of all creation, who are the gods of the gods, not even the supreme lords of all creation can do justice to the picturization of the magnificence of God. So we cannot begin to comprehend it. I mean, I love what's going on with the James Webb Space Telescope, if you followed that at all. I mean, yes, we do believe, if you like, so to speak, in the Big Bang or the beginning. But the absolute is the stage before the beginning and the stage after the end. We're all in the process of going in this exponential expansion, all for it to be returned, but with full consciousness of what we're a part of. But the question that I pose in the book is, for how long has this God been breathing? The yogis describe it as the outbreathing and inbreathing of God. For how long has this God been breathing? We're on this ecstatic, exponential journey of greater and greater consciousness, realization, bliss, if you like. But it sort of has to go far beyond the state of bliss. Bliss is our terminology. That's what we're a part of. That's the message that humanity needs for us to be able to shift gears out of, is it going to be Trump or is it going to be Harris and, and China and Europe and all the rest of this mayhem and squalor and pettiness that's destroying us as a species and destroying, you could say, the environment, is destroying all the species are under threat from our ignorance.
But what people don't realize, I'm going to interject quickly here, and again, this is coming from what I would collectively call spirit, or
yes,
teachers and loved ones, what have you, and we've never seen people so divided and arguing and fighting. But what spirit's shown me is 10 or 15 years from now, those people that you've cut off with, those people that you're no longer speaking to, those people that you're not sharing love, if you will, back and forth, you are literally, and I say global, for people that make that choice, and it's not my job to judge, but you're going to look back on that and be going to say one day through your list of people you blocked and go, why did I block them? I don't know why, but because it's not going to matter. Right? I think that's what I'm getting from what you're saying, that we need to go beyond these superficial things that we're seeing and we're
absolutely.
talking about now and move past it.
I think one of the things the world needs more than anything else, actually, is shock. I think how that comes, I don't know. I mean, hopefully it won't come through the shock of nuclear war, which would be utterly shocking, but it would be extremely destructive at the same time. I'd like to think it will be unequivocal extraterrestrial manifestation that would show, and it should, you see, people say, well, why doesn't it just show up? I think that why doesn't the flying saucer just show up or whatever? I think the reason we don't have that is because I think it would unfortunately very quickly unravel into lawlessness.
Yes.
Which is not what they want. But if it was done in such a way that we are profoundly, we're all we can actually really do is fall to our knees and weep.
That would be beautiful, but that's the problem, is because I am really resonating with everything you're saying, because, and again, not my job to judge, but there are people at the point that aren't moving forward, if you will, and they're so stuck in fear and dogma and what have you, that it would be twisted, and again, people would be fighting and arguing instead of doing exactly what you said and recognizing the beauty and the wisdom and so much we could attain from them, from disclosure, if you will, instead of lawlessness.
Right. it's put that, of course, it's possible. Do I think it's likely? Unfortunately, probably not. But there needs to be, you see, what they would prefer, and this is my reading of the situation, they want to see us do it for ourselves without them needing to show us. Because, I mean, there's a karmic price for everything. It's far better that we change. I mean, they've already given us tremendous clues. I mean, flying saucer sightings, I mentioned again earlier on, crop circles. Anybody who's paying attention should, what on earth are these? It's not two men, drunken men, in the middle of the night with a plank of wood. They're far too sophisticated.
I have a deck. I never show decks. I have a deck I picked up 20 years ago. It's not even in, I'm sorry, not even in print anymore, made by Janusz. And when I bought this, I was just sort of starting into my spiritual, really deep, connecting into the gifts that we've all been given and what have you. And I looked at this and I went, what the heck am I going to do with this? And this is actually called The Keys of the Arcturians, okay? I literally heard, and I don't hear voices, but I now know what that voice was, said, hang on to it, you're going to need it.
Oh,
and this gentleman actually looked at many crop circles, and I believe he probably had some channeled, and he's done a computer regeneration. And on the back of each card, this is why I'm sharing this, because I think it's important. On the back of each card, when I use this, I send it to people when I'm directed to use it. I don't know if you can see. I'll try and turn off the light. Each card has a different foil, symbol, or sigil you are meant to take into meditation, and it helps to unlock part of your higher self, if you will. It's such an incredible deck. I'm so glad I didn't ever get rid of it.
You listen to your higher self, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are some of the core teachings that we have. I mean, the thing is, though, it's not all theory. I mean, I mentioned earlier on the importance of service. Karma yoga of service, is what the Aetherius Society is primarily all about. I mean, it's one thing to sort of, as I say, have this knowledge or this information in theory. How do you apply it? Because the world is in need. The ignorance still needs to be really transmuted, certainly helped.
I like that word, transmuted.
In that sense, in cooperation with intelligences from the other world. I mean, there have been a number of what we call cosmic missions, not just cosmic transmissions. That's the messages, but cosmic missions since that have taken place. The first of which was a mission we called Operation Starlight, that began in 1958, ended 3 years later in 1961, where the cosmic masters, we refer to these beings from the higher dimensions of other planets as cosmic masters. They directed George King to 19 mountains around the world, and using him as a conduit, infused those mountains with a higher frequency of energy. And ever since this is why we need to be involved and engaged in doing the work. They'll give us the tools, but we need to use the tools. I mentioned earlier on, satellite number 3. Satellite number 3 is a wonderful tool, it's an incredible tool. But we need to be engaged in spiritual work, selfless work, in order to be able to activate that high frequency of energy. We don't need to know about satellite number 3, but we need to be engaged in going about our own spiritual work in helping the community, whatever it is. Then you've got these 19 holy mountains. We make pilgrimages routinely to these mountains to invoke the energy, and we invoke it through prayer, which brings me back to the 12 blessings, because at the end of 9 of those 12 blessings, as given by Jesus on 12 consecutive Sundays through Dr. George King, he gave a prayer, and they're incredibly powerful prayers. The 12 blessings, it begins with "Blessed are they who work for peace," and in the practice of the 12 blessings, you invoke the energy of you're sending your love, your appreciation to those who are working for peace, both on this world and beyond this world. What comes back is an infusion of love energy from that group soul of those who are working for peace. And then you have the prayer, and all of the prayers, with the exception of the one to the galaxy, are for the upliftment and the healing of humanity. So you're sending an energy out to they who work for peace. That energy comes back to you, and then you send it out through the prayer. And it builds. I mean, it's what brought me into the Etheric Circuit, this practice of the 12 blessings. My arms were like rods of steel or shafts of white light. I just felt this light. It was like physically difficult to lower my arms. It was so strong. And it builds. Now, we use prayer from the holy mountains in all of our services in our temples around the world. We use the practice of the 12 blessings. We also store prayer energy.
I like that.
I mean, in this flashlight, there's a battery,
right.
that's got electricity or power in it. But prayer is a power. Prayer is a power, is a force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it can be contained. Dr. King devised what we call spiritual prayer batteries, filled with crystal, actually.
Oh, I love it.
Filled with crystal. Can't say too much, but I mean, they're lined with gold. And, so you're invoking the energy through prayer with love, and also through mantra. And then it gets stored in what we call one of these prayer batteries. We use these prayer batteries in two different ways. The original way was to give energy to the Logos of Earth. Another of the cosmic missions, it's all in the book, Lorilei, Maya.
See how fast this went by? I really meant that. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would love to have you back, because I'm sure we have much more we could talk about. But how do people buy your book? How do they get a hold of you? Say they want to know more about the Ethereum Society and what have you. Please share if you got anything coming up.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the book Maya, MAYAMIRE. Maya is a Sanskrit word meaning illusion. Maya as in quagmire. And it's the quagmire of illusion that we've created for ourselves. The subtitle there is A Spiritual Journey into Cosmic Truth and the Dawning of a New World, because coming back to the initiation of Earth in 1964, a new world is being born. The book obviously is available from Amazon. The hope is to get it into bookstores and anywhere else that trades in books. And I'm very grateful to Gavin and the publisher Collective Inc. for all the help that they've given to me in getting this book, making it available. Amazon is the primary source at this point in time. The Etherius Society, we have a website, etherius.org, AETHERIUS.org. There's also the website drgeorgeking.org, drgeorgeking.org. It's all available. I have my own website, sedimentofmysoul.com, where I can be reached.
That is wonderful. I am so grateful to have you here. I want to thank everybody that was here. Lots of times we get people just sort of hanging out in the background, and we love that. People watching this on the replay, I want to thank you all. If you guys ever want to get a hold of me, I am working on my first teaching course. I was hoping for October. I think it's going to be in the new year. So I'm working on a domain name, putting it all under one roof. But right now, you can get a hold of me on Facebook.com/Angel Rock if you want to book a reading. I do mediumship. I do psychic guidance. I do energy healing. I do teaching and mentoring. Fastest way to get a hold of me is really actually on Facebook Messenger, but I am on all social media platforms, either under Lorilei Potvin or the Angel Rock. I have two groups on Facebook, all Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things that Paul and I talked about this evening. Don't forget, David and I will be back on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on UPRN with the thing at the foot of the bed. Don't forget, please, we would love to have you be a part of our Facebook group called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed with Lorilei, Potvin, and David Hansel. When we get to 200, we're getting there. The group hasn't been there that long, but if you guys have a show idea, you've got questions, or you've got pictures or audio recordings, anything to that effect, please feel free to join us. It's a private, safe group, and it's a lot of fun. And when we get to 200, David and I are going to start going live in that group. Again, Paul, I want to thank you so much for being here. I hope to have you back on again and continue our discussion.
Well, thank you, Lorilei. It's been a lovely pleasure talking to you. And
It just flew by. So everybody, please check out his book. I mean, there's so much wisdom there. Like I said, for me to pick up who Dr. King was, the fact that I could pick that up just through you talking, I cannot imagine the incredible things. I do have a copy of the book that I need to get into. I just don't ever get the time to sit back, because when I get into a good book, I can't put it down till I'm done. But that's on my to-do list, definitely, to read it. I love you all. I send you all so much love and light. We'll see you Thursday. Next week, don't forget, on the Angel Rock, one of your favorites, she's usually on 4 times a year, Varla Ventura. We're going to be talking all about fall and the season and what wisdom she has. She's written books on fairies, mermaids, all kinds of the strange and unusual. She's an incredible guest. She's on Coast to Coast AM with her own show under that umbrella. So you guys will also enjoy her. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Stay tuned for the next show coming up. Okay, we love you all. Talk to you soon. Hang on one sec.